absolute value and additive inverse. Both of these concepts have to do with a number line, but they're very different and they're easy to confuse. So make sure you're really thinking which one is which. Additive inverse is a big fancy math word for opposite. What's the opposite of -5? +5. Those are additive inverses. What's the opposite of 1? -1. Those are additive inverses. Okay? Additive inverse means opposite. So if the book says find the additive inverse of -7, what are you going to put for an answer? 7. If the book says find the additive inverse of 3, what are you going to put for an answer? -3. Additive inverse means opposite. Opposite, opposite, opposite. Now, absolute value, completely different. Absolute value means how many spaces from 0. Your answer is not going to be negative. And absolute value, they don't ask you in the book, or most math books don't say, find the absolute value. They put some symbols, these two lines, and they stick the number inside the lines. So, the absolute value of -7, how far away from 0 is that? 7. It's not negative. The absolute value of -7 is 7. It's 7 spaces from 0. Okay? What about the absolute value of +7? Absolute value of +7? How many spaces from 0? 7 spaces. Not negative. Absolute value is how far from 0. Additive inverse means opposite. So, think in your mind, what's the additive inverse of 4? -4. What's the absolute value of 5? 5. What's the additive inverse of 2? -2. What's the absolute value of -3? 3. It's 3 steps from 0. Opposite, how far from 0? Okay. Additive inverse is always just the opposite. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. Absolute value, sometimes they use it in problems and you have to know how to work with it. So let's do a little practicing of that. Remember, these lines mean absolute value. Absolute value means how far from 0. How far from 0 is -6? 6. How far from 0 is 4? 4. Now, those are pretty easy. What about this one? The absolute value signs are around something, so that means you have to do the math inside. They're functioning like parentheses. So first, you do the math inside, and you go 3 minus 5. Well, that's -2. Now you take the absolute value. What's the absolute value of -2? Well, it's 2. So the answer to that is 2. Sometimes, though, they don't have 2 in an absolute value sign like parentheses. Sometimes they have 1 here and 1 here, and you add them or subtract them. So in that case, first you take the absolute value of that. What's the absolute value of that? 2. 2 spaces from 0. What's the absolute value of -7? 7. 7 spaces from 0. Then you get to add them. 2 plus 7 is 9. Okay, time to practice. Stop the video, practice these problems, then turn it back on, and we'll see if you got it right.